Alright, we're back under the sea. It's turn 27 with Relay, and you remember last turn what was basically happening is we were in the middle of our war with Xibalba. And a couple of things happened this turn. Let's take it through. And firstly, I bought some water gems from Ermor. Actually, before we go through all the interesting stuff, let's go through the big things for this turn. So, this turn I attacked this province, Nardago. It was held by Ashphodel. It's this end of this little peninsula down here. And I sent in my small force. I did this because I saw this sage here, and I thought maybe this was a sage province, and Ashphodel wouldn't border me, and I could just pinch off this sage province, and that'd be nice handy prize. Anyway, we took it without much problem because, meteorite guards are awesome. The two slave guardians who didn't have armor died, but everyone else did fine, despite the fact there was a decent PD amount and a sage here. That was fine. The problem was the same turn that happened, Cetis stormed Ashphodel's capital, and as a result, Ashphodel died. Also, the same turn, the final fort of Vanarus fell, and so Vanarupol's Draugrace died as well. So, two gods down, one turn. You don't see that very often. Here is why I consider this one of the greatest misplays I made this game. Because if I had thought this through for a moment, and knew that I did this because I also thought Caelum was going to take this province. If I knew they weren't, there would have been every reason in the world to leave that province there. Why? Because as long as that province was there, Ashphodel wouldn't be vanquished, which would mean all of its shitty dominion would stay here, staining the interior, until eventually Cetis was able to grind it down. That would have meant maybe 10 or 12 more turns at least of deathy dominion inflicting this territory. Remember that Cetis's dominion gives a positive income scale to them where they gain it, for middle-aged Cetis at least, and a negative income scale to everyone else. Ashphodel's dominion kills population, which is the long-term economic heartland. It's already clear at this point in the game that Cetis, Nabar, Ermor, and Caelum are probably the bigger players overall. And of those other players, Nabar, Cetis, and Ermor are probably larger than Caelum. And of all of those, Cetis and Nabar are probably the scariest because of just how quickly Nabar is expanding and also how successful Cetis has been. Cetis has now successfully eaten and annihilated Ashphodel by turn 27, and they've done it solo, whereas I've partitioned my first target, which was small to begin with because of the shitty start. Just marvel for a moment that this is Eriu's capital, right? So they had the problems of not being able to go into the water, a 4 province cap circle, which is not great, and this is a very good province income-wise, but these are poor resource-wise, except for this one, so hard to mass out resource-intensive troops, and only this province was worth anything. Limited expansion opportunities. Ermor and Xibalba are both compact down here, and Caelum was here very quickly. So I didn't get a huge amount of territory out of this war, and I'm now fighting my second one, again in a coalition. Cetis killed Ashphodel themselves. If I had avoided invading this province and convinced Caelum to do the same, then the long-term economic health of Cetis could have been significantly affected, and I'm kicking myself over that right now. That said, if it turns out later that Cetis is attacked by Nabar or something, then I'll be very happy this happened because it'll bolster Cetis. But for the moment, I'm oof, an opportunity lost, and in the end, the province didn't have a sage area, had terrible income, it's not very good. I'll search it for gems, maybe it's worth something. It bought us a little bit of travel room, but for the most part, this was useless. So we indirectly killed Ashphodel, and we shouldn't have, because by not killing Ashphodel, we could have done very significant damage to Cetis without ever, committing a hostile act. With that said, let's go on to the rest of the turn. So, Alt 4 completed, going on to Alt 5, Tiamat found, 1 Earth, nothing. Okay, so 2 searches, and we found... Oh, I thought it was... Oh, yeah, go to targeted province. Yeah, 1 Earth. Okay. 16 water gems for 1 permanent Earth, that's fine. And then we found a giant anemone, which is nature, so 2 gems that turn. No successes on the other search. And then a series of battles. First one in Small Sea. One of the few times you'll ever see a Shark Knight actually used. So that was over here, where we just moved in and tried to take this province. Unfortunately, Ermor's dominion is already here. and has killed off the majority of the population. Great. But, so I was really excited because I was like, ooh, kelp forest, high income. No, 11 income, might be able to get it up to 12, and then even then we need to preach down that dominion or it's just all going to die eventually. We also got onto the fortress at Utterdeep, so just over around the PD. This is a very small army, but it's something. What we're going to be able to do now is bring these forces over along with fresh recruits from here to consolidate. The other forces we had, we saw a couple of other battles. So we saw Ermor attacking these Ivy people, and this is just a useful chance to check in again on what Ermor is doing with their armies. Their bless, in case we forgot. I can't remember if we covered their bless in earlier episodes, but it's really relevant. And I remember getting quite worried about their bless around about this point because I was again conceiving of the possibility of fighting a war. Shock resist, fire resist, HP, undead regeneration, blood vengeance. The no firestorm, limited resistance to wrathful skies and AoE shock. HP plus 5 just makes them generally more killable. Very good synergy with blood vengeance, and obviously undead regeneration synergy with HP plus 5. Because when you have 11 HP, instead of the base 6, you regenerate 2 HP per turn instead of 1. And with good protection and good defense skills and good resistances and pierce resistant and all sorts of damage reductions and whatnot, that makes Knights incredibly scary. So the zombies threw their healer and just absolutely raffle stomped these guys. They lose long deads. Ermor doesn't count long dead as casualties. I'm pretty sure you're legally barred from playing Ermor if you consider long dead to be casualties. Long deads aren't real troops. Neither are Solus. In fact, Solus are even worse than long dead. We saw a small battle between Nabar and Marignon, which shows how Nabar is raiding. Again, they're using a lot of sections. This is actually a pretty substantial force, just knocking around Marignon. I've decided that Marignon, despite their desperate states, are going to be a friend of ours. I'm going to do my best by them. I can't intervene right now, but I'm going to stay in communication with Marignon. They've been friendly. Hopefully they survive, and if they do, we might be able to provide them support later on. We took back a province from an independent attack, only to later lose another province to an independent attack, but hey, that happens. And there was this battle in Spire Woods, which is again just that little raiding sort of stuff here. So we've secured these two provinces, sort of opening up this communication channel, and what that means is we can do something like this. This turn, haven't quite plotted it out, but we're going to need to basically at some point crack and assault this fort. We're going to take this province so that we are finally contiguous. With this province taken, we will encircle the map in both directions. And that's pretty good. At that point, this big landmass on which everyone else lives, we will have completely surrounded, in inverted commas. And there will be one water province on the map. This one, right here, Genom, 190, which is still in the hands of someone else. That's pretty incredible. Once we manage to take these fortresses, of course. So one of the great losses, the loss condition for a water nation is either a land nation gets powerful enough to take all the thrones on land and you're irrelevant, or someone else comes into the water and challenges you and defeats you. Xibalba and Ermor are really the only candidates, and I think that we're in a position where Xibalba is pretty much done for, because Ermor has taken their capital, we're taking their last underwater fortresses, so Xibalba will not be a threat. Ermor, maybe, but Ermor fighting me alone underwater right now, I think I can scare him off it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can scare him into saying, hey, how about we continue cooperating, but I need to demand that you give me this capital. Because if you take it, Ermor, you're just going to kill all the population, all the gold will go away. But if you let me take it, it'll mean a lot more to me, and in exchange, I can give you support, gems, assistance, etc. So I'm working on that now. We'll see if he bites. Ideally, I'm going to get as much land as I can, because I'm going to argue that I have done, and I have statistically done, a lot of the fighting and losing underwater, and I'm going to do more of it. In particular, the big Xibalban Cap army came into the water and fought me, rather than fighting Ermor. So I'm going to try and leverage that for all it's worth diplomatically with the Ermorian government, and see if they're willing to allow me to save the lives of the Xibalban frogs. After all, they are our genetic cousins. See if we can save them from Ermorian dominion and thus death. I think that's it for this turn. We gained a few random event gems. One of our guys got cursed. We have breached this one, Lake Vastness, so we'll storm that this turn. The storming tactics are going to be super simple. We're just going to, hold attack. We're going to attack rear, not going to wait. Storm Meteor Guard right into the breach, and we're going to have the Illithids paralyze the defenders on the walls, and hopefully that will be that. But we'll see. I'll come back in turn 28. I think our war here is pretty much it's going to be won. At this point, it's clear that this war is going to be won. The question is, how many casualties will we take reducing these fortresses? And then we need to start thinking about what our next strategic move is, because there are a couple open and available to us. I'm mulling those over. We'll discuss those in a future turn. Alright, turn 28, and it's sad that it happens. Once again, the person who we sent into the Void Gate found some people who weren't so keen to come back and serve Relay in the living, just weren't happy to help New Australia under the sea. So these formless spawn, which are obviously Mercury elementals that have been made to look scarier, but they're bloody scary, came in and they destroyed our guy. Our guy went body ethereal, which protected him for a bit, but there's a lot of attacks there and he died. Bought some more water gems from Ermor, which I'm using just to power. I'm going to use that to power a couple more Tiamat casts because I'm running pretty low. We drew a sort of swung and a miss on our 6 site searches, but hey, that happens. I mean, some of our searches are just nature 1, right? But I need every gem I can find. We saw a couple of battles. We saw Satis seizing a throne. This was a throne that we also pinged this turn just to see what was there. However, all we ended up getting to see was the Satisian army. So they haven't wasted any time coming back to secure this throne, and that's probably a good move on their part, because otherwise I would have taken it, and they would have had the question of, do we go to war with Relay for one province and then let them raid our coastline for the rest of the days? Satis's army, let's analyse this for a moment, because this is a force that is veteran and has just come back from defeating Ashphodel, but is clearly configured to killing the throne rather than Ashphodel. You've got a line of Falchineers, you've got a middle core of elite warriors that are a type of slave troop, and then in the back you've got Sobek warriors and a couple of poison slingers. 3 types of Satisian middle-aged troops. Satisian middle-aged troops are pretty good, whereas late-age Satis doesn't compete really the same way because, it's the late age and the lineup changes. Falchineers are DPS infantry. They have 2 18 damage falchions. And attack skill 12. They have 15 protection, which makes them moderately survivable and 11 hit points. They're not bad. They're a bit expensive for what they do, but they have, as I said, they have 2 attacks and decent protection. They're okay. They'll kill a lot of things. In the middle, you've got the predator lizards. So the predator lizards, as opposed to the herbivore lizards, more aggressive. The Sobeks associated with them, they come from the swamps. And you don't see them in late-age Satis anywhere near as much, presumably because I believe there was a civil war of some sort and the predator lizards were crushed. But in the Middle Age, slave warriors, so the predator lizards, are still enslaved, and you can get these guys who have 13 hit points, less protection. You always get the elite warriors, by the way, you don't get the unarmored ones, but they have a 20 damage trident and a 13 damage bright, and they're sleeves, which means they have half upkeep cost. 6 upkeep for one of these guys as opposed to 10 for a Falchineer. So there's a saving to be made there. And the 20 damage here is piercing, which makes it better against high armoured opponents. A couple of runners who are your cavalry, but they're not particularly good because they have no protection, but they're funny, like, whatever. And then Sobek warriors in the back. So these are the larger size 3 predator lizards, 25 hit points, 20 protection, just good stats in general. You can see that everything here is poison resistant or has been made poison resistant, and then Satis does what Satis does and casts Foul Vapors. Now, the infantry then serves as a front line. The cavalry are surrounded and destroyed, but if you're in a larger army, what would be happening is the mage is at the back here, and you can see actually this guy's going to die before the army gets to him of poison, along with all the poor blood slaves that will die either of the air choking them or whatever. Satis does lose some troops, in particular in some of their serpents, I believe. Yeah, they lose 3 sacred serpents, because you're not entirely immune to poison damage, and some of them might have been bleeding, but there you go. So they're now on that throne, we bounced into them, and we had a Star Child set to retreat, so we just saw their army again. Udderdeep. So, in this battle, Xibalba came out of their fortress in an attempt to throw us off. They brought a mixture of warriors, they brought mages with water gems, and where is it? The feathered serpent. Jade serpent, there you are. You don't see many of these, but they're sacred, they're banners, and it's probably just here to raise morale, really, or at least that's why it's been summoned. What we've got is our sieging force, which is about the same size, but we also have water elementals, and our water elementals are not the little shitty size 3 ones, they are the size 6 monsters with 4 20 damage crush attacks and underwater regeneration. You'll also see that he casts Shark Attack, but my troops are around the mages and are there to defend, which leaves a small group of troops and the water elementals to go forward. Some of them get beaten the shit up, but big water elemental here fights several smaller ones for a while, which gives the time for our troops to clean up, come forward, and our troops hit hard enough that we can kill water elementals, which is handy. He does get a couple of big ones out, so he must have gotten Conj 5 at the end. You can see, oh, he summons another one. We grind our way through in Utter Deep. We lose 20 Meteorite Guardsmen and a leader, but we basically destroy the army. 66 casualties among the fortress that sallied out, and then with that, you can basically say the army there is probably broken. This was just a small battle to take another province, so that was here. So that was closing this setup. And then, as you can probably see on the map there, we stormed the fortress at Lake Vastness, as I showed you last turn. Run straight in, so set your troops to attack rear. They sent out, you can see summon troops, where they've desperately turned water gems into units. These big units are just, they're not useful when you're fighting something that does huge amounts of damage and is 3 to a square. Just like giants, right? They're vulnerable to troops that do lots and lots of damage and pack multiple units per square. So things like sea serpents, useful if you're facing an enemy who has lots of low damage attacks or doesn't have many attacks to begin with, and you just want a big troop that can hit them with high damage single hits. But I have lots of high damage troops with decent morale, and I have Mind Blaster support, so I just storm through and kill everything. And then there's some raiding, counter raiding between Marignon and whatnot. A little bit of extra gold, a few extra fire gems, and Blightlands is breached. So we will assault Blightlands this turn. We will move this start to move this army elsewhere, and this fortress will again get reinforcements from down here, and hopefully be in a position to storm that soon. This should now be Xibalba's final holdout. And once that goes, hopefully what will happen is a lot of the Xibalban Dominion will clear out. I can use the troops that I was going to use against this throne here to clean up this little island, which no one had the time to get to. I think Xibalba did, and then it was attacked by Independents. So we'll clear up the satyrs, and then eventually we might be able to clear up these militia and heavy cav, and take 2 more provinces for our deal. And at that point, our conquest of the water will be complete. And I'll be very, very happy for the conquest of the water to be complete. Marignon, meanwhile, is just desperately trying to counter-raid themselves. We're going to try and put some money together and build a fortress here at Silver Wall, and maybe at some point kill these barbarians. This I want to hold on to. The fact that we've got 3 air gems here, a little bit of income, and most importantly a strategic position from which we can assist Marignon or attack Ind, or just generally get more of our coastal recruits. I think having a little enclave here is worth it. And as long as we can do that while maintaining decent relationships with the Marignonese, Nabar's not going to do anything about it because they're obviously busy in a war right now, and I really doubt that they're going to want to engage in one over a tiny enclave at a time when they're fighting a war with Marignon, and it sounds like soon to be fighting a war with Caelum. The bird people are quite large. They know that Nabar is engaged in hostilities elsewhere, so I believe Caelum is jumping into that war sometime soon. Got to track that. That being said, turn 29 coming up next. Alright, turn 29. I feel better powering back through these recordings now because the game has now advanced a little bit and I finally have a chance to breathe after some extended shifts. So I'm happy with the game catching up a little bit now that the late game is sort of crystallized and the number of people who can benefit from this information is lesser. I'll also note at this point that I believe the player of Caelum is posted, at the time that this goes up, probably will have already posted at least some introductory videos for this game, so I'll link to that in the description. Colonial, who recorded some great Dominions 4 content back in the day, is, I believe, recording this game too, which is good because with GC's really rough start, he decided not to record this game. And then I think he's been surprised by how well he has subsequently done, and thus decided he can't really go back and fill in the gap. So at least through Colonial, we should have two perspectives on this game, not just mine, in case I'm a bit of a biased narrator. Anyway, turn 29. We did find, I think it was one magic site total, an enchanted field, which is another nature. So up to 7 nature. We're doing well on nature, but this death income worries me because we failed a bunch of searches and including some dark knowledges. The earth gems is weird that is our highest, and the fact that water is only narrowly higher than air and fire, like all that's a little odd until you remember Voice of Tiamat searches for all of these, so it's not that odd that earth comes out, like it's just random chance that earth comes out on top. Reed took some provinces from Independence, or in the case of Wolf Memory, took it for the first time, so that province has now been seized. Unfortunately, it turns out to be shit with the income, but it's where our first death gem is. Hooray! We now have a death gem. Great. What does Shinigami say? That's going to be profit. Profit over Goblin Tokugawa. Then we had the fortress in Blightlands, which we assaulted and took. Easy. There was basically nothing inside, which is great because it means now I can take my troops off that fortress because a bunch of them have gotten diseases from the death site that is no doubt here. So we'll point a dark knowledge at this province now that we have it. Search it to level 9 death, and I bet there's a well of pestilence or something in there because that's the only thing that would explain that. Random events, cool things, gold, gems, except for the fact this is what I wanted to talk about because it's funny more than because it's somewhat strategically significant too. So, there was a random attack. We're all used to random attacks of everything up to and including heavy cavalry, and this War Lobster event is absolutely the equivalent of being attacked with heavy cavalry. But they're a little different. Why? Well, they have 13 hit points, and they only have 2 protection, and you're like, wow, this is shit. 9 magic resistance. I mean, it's got 2 attacks, that's sort of okay, but 13 hit points, size 5, prot 2, won't these things die like absolute flies? And the answer is, of course, the rider will. These things have a second shape. And in a moment, hopefully our PD will inflict damage enough that we will kill at least some riders. By the way, they have trample, which makes them really brutal. And I was really hoping I'd kill a rider. Oh, okay. Guess we're not going to kill you then. Anyway, the point is, once you kill the rider, they have a second shape, and the second shape has like 20 prot. Because it's just a lobster. And the lobster is armoured, unlike the unarmoured idiot riding it. Which means you have a really high protection, decent, and it's got decent hit points too, trampling underwater unit, and it's just brutal. There's not much we can really do against these war lobsters. We certainly don't want to fight them in a stand-up fight, because even with really high-quality troops, the trample will do a lot of damage. So this province now is basically locked down. We can keep researching inside, that's fine. We can preach, but we can't recruit. So this fort basically may as well never have been built. It's useless. You can't recruit. We can't produce the troops that we wanted to reinforce this front. We can't produce mages, so we've lost a significant share of our industrial potential right there. Now, how am I going to get rid of this? Well, there's 3 commanders. The solution is, if we can get up to construction 6, which we might try and do soon. At construction 6, we can get some water bottles, and we can send in some assassins, and we can kill the commanders and rout the war lobsters. Otherwise, I guess I'd need large numbers of mine blasters, because war lobsters have poor MR. But I don't have large numbers of mine blasters, and the ones that I do have are over here, which you may have noticed is nowhere near Sea of Woe. And I'm looking at the situation, considering at the moment, and thinking, well, really, actually, once I take out Xibalba, the next war, may be Caelum. And it may be Caelum because I believe what's happening is Caelum is fighting effectively against Naba. Really effectively. Putting a real crimp in Nabar style. I'm not sure, but I think Shiniyama may enter that war as well, despite the fact they fought alongside Nabar earlier, because Nabar is steamrolling, or was steamrolling until this point. Ermor then needs a target. And in order to get access to this capital here, in order to sell Ermor on the idea that I should be given clay, I need to dangle something in front of him. And one of those things may be joining him in a conflict with Caelum. Now, I'm also in contact with Caelum, and I may join Caelum in a conflict with Ermor. That's possible too. But either way, either of those two options, I will need my armies over here, where they already are, in order to either attack Ermor or attack Caelum. The third option, of course, is that I go and fight Nabar in order to take pressure off that. But if they're already being steamrolled, then attacking Nabar is just going to hand a lot of territory over to Caelum, who at that point will be really, really beefy and potentially problematic. Because Colonial is a solid player. Caelum is a nation. It's a sort of a one-trick pony, but it does have some really good tricks. The things it can do are very good. And Ermor may decide that rather than fighting them, maybe it is worth. Maybe they decide this is enough territory to merit fighting me and then just enduring the raids the rest of the game in exchange for securing all of this. Maybe they call my bluff on that, because I'm starting to get quite a good collection of provinces up here. So I'm going to try and maintain relations with Ermor for the moment, because I'm not ready to fight them. I'm going to try and investigate the military capacities of Nabar and Caelum. I need to know more about what's happening there. I do need to close out this Xibalban war. With the greatest respect to Smokey, I need to close out this Xibalban war and put them in the dirt so I can redeploy my forces elsewhere. And come turn 30, we'll see how close we are to doing that. Alright, it's turn 30. A couple of things happened. Ermor claimed the Silver Throne. So Ermor now has, and Satis claimed the other one. So let's have a look at thrones for a moment. Ermor now has access to air astral mages. Problem for Ermor is they'll find it very, very difficult to afford these mages, because their land dies, their income is limited, and the income they do have needs to be spent realistically on forts to get legionary spawns, temples to get death gems and get access to their sacred spawns inside their forts. And that's a lot of cash for Ermor, who very, very quickly kills its population. But they might be able to get a limited number of these guys together and use some air supporting magic. But I think more than anything, this 100 gold per turn is going to really help them, because that won't die. Even when the population reaches 0, they'll still get 100 gold per turn from that fort. It's also problematic for us, because it means that they're now going to spread as if they had 2 temples here, which is problematic considering at the moment we've got some Xibalban influence here. I really don't want Ermor's to wash over us. So you can see we've already templed these 3 here. We're going to need to get some priests down. Where's it? I'll need to find some priests, get them down here. I've got one here. I need to temple these provinces right here. We've come on to land here and picked up this province, and I'm very close to striking a deal with Ermor over this province. And I will go through that deal next turn, because it's a bit of a Molotov Ribbentrop style pact, as I've had this arrangement of working with Ermor described to me before. I need to stress, I don't trust Ermor, I just don't want to fight it, and I think it might be strategically useful. When you think about it, if I can point Ermor east, then they become a roadblock for all of these powers that are otherwise problematic for me, who then need to do something in order to counter the purple blob that's advancing that way, while I do my own thing, poaching around the periphery. We searched for magic sites, didn't find any. We tried to assassinate a mounted commander, and we failed, so I was just test. This is basically a test, a live fire test, of whether or not Mind Blast assassination works. It worked in some of my tests, didn't work live. That's unfortunate. But we went into Ermor, as I said. We went into Midge Fens, which was that barbarian province, so you saw that one over here, and found out that barbarians really struggle against meteorite guards. I think part of this is because the repel effect of the trident, and part of it is the fact that 24 slashing damage actually isn't enough to reliably kill a 14 hit point, 19 protection unit. Just isn't. Meanwhile, with 11 attack skill and 22 damage, you'll slaughter barbarians. So they ran into our spear line and they died. Barbarians are weird. They're either super scary or not scary at all, depending on what you're fighting with. And then we moved into Nicaea, which was just a heavy cavalry independent province over here. So this is the northern area where our assassination failed. This province on this island is a little better. I'm going to call this like Madagascar or something. No gems here, we'll have to search it, but 59 income, and that'll get better once we put in some PD, and we eventually bring this unrest down with a little bit of patrolling. But that's good. We now have a bunch of troops standing here, and these troops can't be seen by Ermor or Satis, because this province doesn't technically border anything around it. Which is a bit odd considering that interface there. You'd think you could swim across, but no, you have to go here then here. Dominion's maps can be odd. You need to notice those linkages. Don't just rely on your eyes to cite the geography. The borders matter. So that army is concealed for the moment. We probably will redeploy it, probably south, as we're likely to need it, although I'll consider whether or not I need it up here in Utterdeep. So that happened. We got 12 nature gems, which is very good. Eriu has Misfortune 3, so what? We're under siege by independents. Our walls are damaged. Now, independents never storm forts. So what will happen is they will break down these walls, and these walls are halfway to broken down. And then they won't come in. And I won't fight them, and we'll just spend the next year with them camping outside my little rock walls as I sit inside hoping the lobsters don't come and trample us to death, which is a good thing. Well, it's not a good thing, but it's better than the alternative of independents that had the AI necessary to storm the fort, in which case I can almost guarantee we would lose the fort. Because how many mages do we have inside? Oh, we might be able to... If I blew a lot of water gems, I might be able to throw enough water elementals at them to kill them. But I'm not going to take that risk or spend that number of gems at this point in time when I'm pretty sure I have a plan. And that plan involves going to Construction 6. I'll talk why next turn, but water bottles are a really big part of it. So that all happened. We've also breached the fortress at Utterdeep, and this is the beginning of the end, I think, for Xibalba. We don't have a huge army. We've got some water gems. Fortress is breached. We'll bring in a few more troops, but we're in a really good position there. In terms of other conflicts, we don't have much intelligence at the moment, only that we can see that Ermor is redeploying their troops, and they now have very large clusters over here, and this big large army is heading towards their throne on 60, which is a point of contention, I believe, between them and Satis. Meanwhile, Satis's army has not yet actually redeployed, and the fact that they haven't redeployed suggests they might have been expecting me to come ashore and attack them. I didn't. I have no warlike intentions towards Satis, but it might be worth me negotiating with him, talking to him, which I believe I do at this point, so he understands that's not an immediate threat. People generally get pretty antsy when you're a water nation sitting with large amphibious, stressing amphibious armies on their coast. If you're Pelagia, they don't care. But if you're Relay and have large numbers of these Illithids and Meteorite Guards, which are very capable amphibious forces, or if you're like late age Atlantis and you're sitting in the water off someone's coast, they're going to worry. And in some ways that works for me because it means they won't release their forces to go fight Nabar or Ind. In particular, I would like them not to go fight Ind because Ind is by all accounts relatively small by comparison to Satis, and I don't want Satis to grow. Satis stretches from here to here. So that gives you a pretty good image of quite a large nation. Ind is like that. Marignan survives in this pocket, and Nabar, like here be Nabar. You know? Here be Nabar. So 30 is a bit of an uneventful turn. We'll come back on 31, and I'll take you through my deal with the devil and my plans from here. Alright, it's turn 31. Some reinforcements have arrived at Utterdeep. More reinforcements are arriving, and once these guys arrive, we'll be able to storm and take out the Xibalbans. I've decided not to risk taking the Xibalbans early for the simple reason that right now, until I get my temples up, and I built one and I'm going to build another, and I've also brought in my helpful Wombat, the Visitor, who can teleport to any province on the map instantly, which is a really nifty ability. He is sacred, so he is here to build temples on my newly established bridgehead. A bridgehead that Ermor has handed over. Why has Ermor handed this over? Well, let's go back a step. First and foremost, the war over here is on. Shinuyama is standing on a fortress of Nabar. Caelum is in this war, and Caelum is committed and capable in doing damage, or at least that's the intelligence I have available to me. Combined with the fact that our good mates Marignan have got a decent stack up and are starting to counter-raid and re-establish control over their territory, I think Nabar is in trouble. Serious trouble. in danger of being apportioned and cut up between these nations. Now, Marignan getting spoils is perfectly fine. Also, Ind is in on this war too. Ind is also attacking Nabar. Nabar just got too big too quickly, didn't manage the diplomacy, and as a result got coalitioned. And this coalition is in some ways a problem for us, because a stronger... The most of the gains will probably go to the strongest powers. The strongest powers being Caelum, who also have bird mobility that allows them to capture large swaths of territory. A strong Caelum is potentially a problem in the long run, as is Satis. In Marignan, not so much, but even Shiniyama is now growing in strength. And ideally what we want is for Nabar to lose, but Nabar to lose slowly. And this is just not a situation where Nabar is going to lose slowly. So, whereas a few turns ago I was thinking about attacking them to help Marignan, and I still really want to help Marignan, and I'll find a way to help Marignan because they've been friendly, I need to slow down the destruction of Nabar. The logical option then would be to attack one of the people who are attacking them, Shiniyama, Ind, or Caelum. At the same time, Ermor. Ermor desperately needs an enemy. For the immediate term, yeah, sure, it'll probably be this throne, but they're about to stomp that throne and take it. Then they need an enemy, and they have 3 enemies available. Me, Caelum, and Satis. Here's what I think would happen. If Ermor attacks me, I think I lose the game. Or at least the chance of winning is small. I don't have the research needed to efficiently conquer Ermorian territory at this point. I have an ability to somewhat counter his forces under sea, but he'll reach some research goals as well, and he'll be able to things like Horde of Skeleton me and whatnot, and he can make underwater fights expensive and continuous. He can seize a lot of my economy rests on these areas. For example, if he took Eriu, that's stripping a significant amount of my gold. I have 3,000 income, 10% of that is in Eriu. Another 5% is in 177 here. These provinces again. So you might have 20% of my income in this little cluster here. Add this. He can handicap me by taking these provinces, and I am not in a position to defend against the Ermorian Horde. I can't beat him on land right now. So I need to avoid him attacking me. If he attacks Satis, then my prediction is that Caelum will probably attack Ermor. Probably. I had hoped that Caelum might attack Satis, but with Caelum going in against Nabar instead, there is now no chance of that happening. Satis, meanwhile, I believe, is plotting an attack on Ind. But that attack won't happen if Ermor attacks Satis. That attack will probably only happen if Satis feels like Ermor won't attack them, and the way they'll feel Ermor won't attack them is if Ermor attacks someone else. Meanwhile, if they attack Caelum, I think Satis will continue with their invasion of Ind. Just my reading of the board. Caelum is committed to a war already, which they're doing well and they're committed well in, but they have lots of strategic mobility they can redeploy if necessary, and the chance to put Ermor out of the game is attractive if they see an opportunity to do it at relatively low cost. And if all of Ermor's undead swarm into Satis, it is very quick. 1, 2... Caelum could be in Ermor in 3 to 4 turns. And they wouldn't have to give the Ermorians much warning, because Ermor wouldn't be aware of the first wave of redeployments. And they could do those redeployments freely, knowing that other nations would pick up the slack on the Nabar front. There is no way Nabar would not accept a peace from Caelum right now. So if Ermor attacks Satis, I reckon they get dogpiled by both Caelum and Satis. And I don't think there's a great outcome for me in that, because what happens then is Ermor loses the war, probably, and I end up bordering Satis and Caelum, both of whom are engorged, and I have to play one against the other, but there's a very reasonable chance that either of them decide to kick me off land together as a coalition before they fight. Serious risks. If, however, Ermor invades Caelum, then there's a position for me to sweep up all of this northern coast. Maybe. And if I can sweep up that northern coast, what will also happen is I can encourage Ermor to snake along the south. I don't even have to say anything. I just have to make sure that I move quickly on this, and his natural path to advance will be to clean up the south. Helps that the valuable province of the capital is here. So Ermor would want to push through this area here and sweep this all up. At that point, Ermor has a really long border with Satis, and I can guarantee long-term rivalry between the two. At that point, Ermor and Satis is a very likely war to happen, and it's unlikely to bring anyone else into support because the person who would have come into support is dead. So how do I get Ermor to fight Caelum? Well, I look at what Ermor needs, and I offer it to them in exchange for them taking that particular course of action. Now, bearing in mind that Ermor has already told me that they're seriously considering a war against Caelum. But if I told them I'll step off or I'll attack you, they probably wouldn't. Instead, what I told them was this. 1. If you are able to secure some early victories, I will join you in the war against Caelum. If you get your face kicked in, I'm going to leave you to dry because you're Ermor. But if you do well, I will come in and provide support. You will not be alone. And for Ermor, having an ally is almost like it doesn't happen. If you offer Ermor an alliance, they're probably going to take it because no one else will offer it. Because allying with Ermor comes with really high costs. And the high cost is all this land is being made worthless. My land is being endangered by their dominion. The population may die. I've lost provinces already. And in the long run, I'm going to have to deal with the snowballing zombie apocalypse. But I'm relatively confident in my ability to deal with a zombie apocalypse. And more importantly, I'm less confident in other people's ability to deal with a zombie apocalypse, and I'm determined to make it their problem. So I've said I'll come in and attack. The second thing is, Ermor has a terrible, terrible weakness, and their terrible weakness is they cannot research for shit. The reason is their mages cost death gems, and they are severely gatekept on death gems. Death gems don't scale with your territory nearly as much as gold do. You can't recruit them out of all the other forts you make. You have to summon each and every Dusk Elder and Spectator. That's really harsh, and it means Ermor can struggle to get any research done, and it's one of the reasons why I believe Ermor is actually a bit of a pushover in certain phases of the game before they catch up in that research. So if everyone else has reached like 3 level 9s, Ermor may eventually reach 1 level 9, but at that point Ermor with that level 9 can do so much. They can do so much with that because of their infinitely replenishing army and their ability to break the economy in a variety of ways. So Ermor told me that this province down here had a Magus Temple. The Magi are fire mages. Relay does not have native fire mages. Ermor has native fire mages. But I have no native fire mages. What I do have is 776 research per month at turn 31, which is pretty bloody good. So I made an offer. The offer was you give me 78, 99, 71. You let me join you in your war against Caelum. And after you're done with Caelum, you guarantee that you'll fight someone else rather than me, and I'll fight someone else rather than you, and we'll just stay out of each other's way for a bit. Not a true nap, but just a gentleman's agreement to stay out of each other's way. That's dangerous because Mr. Root is known for rapidly changing strategic direction. So I still have to be ready for a betrayal at some point. Like, make no mistake, I have to be ready for that. But my commitment at the moment was, you can't research Construction 6. You can't. You can't realistically get there as Ermor at any practical point in the game. I can get there in a couple of turns. So if you give me this province and these Magi, I will create a couple of... And we worked out a formula of how much they were going to cost and how many. It's not a huge number of lanterns. It's a small number of lanterns, but it will make a difference. And I will provide him with lightless lanterns in exchange for those provinces and us working together and not being invaded, and a little bit of assistance. So I got a Dwarven Hammer to construct the lightless lanterns, and a few extra water gems was basically what I got. This will provide Ermor with a little bit of a research boost. And in this sense, I'm sort of making Ermor more dangerous, but in a controlled fashion. I kind of know how much I'm accelerating their research. I can do the numbers and figure out what difference that's likely to make, where they're likely to get to, etc. It will make them more dangerous, but maybe I want them more dangerous in order to distract the real threatening forces on the rest of the continent. Yes, eventually they'll be my problem, but that's the plan. The plan is lightless lanterns to Ermor, which is almost as bad as almost selling me lightless lanterns when I was Nazca, but I'm going in eyes wide open. In exchange, we will probably, he will attack Caelum, and if he does well, I will then sweep in and secure northern Caelum. in particular, I'm going to make sure I get this throne, because otherwise I'm not going to get anywhere if I can't take some land thrones, and the one in the water is just not going to do it for me. I'm going to go to construction 6, and I'm going to use that to make lightless lands, and I'm going to use that to make bottles of living water to enable me to start being an assassin power, which I really want to do. So construction 6 has value for me for a whole variety of reasons. It's worth going to. I'll have it next turn. I'll have it before I'm actually able to recruit Magi in any reasonable number, because I now need to build a fort here, which will take a period of time. At least there's already a lab here, thankfully, from the event, I presume. And those guys will then be able to create the lands. I'll seize Xibalba, I'll temple it, and I'll turn this into another little economic hub in exchange for supplying arms to the zombie apocalypse. I truly am morally bankrupt, but there we go. I think it's good strategy. We'll see if I fall on my face doing it or whether it pays off. I've also tried to start breaking in a little bit of diversity by getting up this Naiad. This Naiad allows me to go up to, is now Water 3, Nature 3, which gives me some significant nature access. I can now use this to do things like create thistle maces, and with thistle maces I can make more thistle maces and vine shields and rings of regeneration, all sorts of useful and important goods. Search magic sites. The magical diversity brought on by a Naiad can't be underestimated, and if you're a water nation with a water nature cross path, then Naiads are a great boosting mechanism. They are cheap, they cost water gems, which are not expensive, in order to give you nature access, which is really, really good. I feel like I talked a lot about that, but that strategy really shapes everything I'm about to do for the next 12 or so turns at least, so I needed to discuss my agreement with Ermor. Found one province which was astral, one magic site which was astral, which is fine. I moved in to Gnumia with Nabar's, so I told Nabar I was doing this, and I said, Nabar, this is going to be my area. And they agreed, because as I expected, they don't want to be pushed right now because they're fighting a forefront war that they can't win, so they handed over this province they can't possibly defend. This gives us a nice little presence on this point of the island, which we will patrol down, establish some infrastructure on, search for gems, etc. We took that province from Ermor. Unexpected events. Unfortunately, Eriu had a famine, misfortune, unrest, and some gems over there. If you think I'm not doing very well with my luck 3, it's actually because my dominion sucks. Like, my dominion has grown slowly. It's not spread over the majority of my territory because of the conflict it has from every one of my water provinces bordering multiple pressuring land provinces. It's just really hard to get actual dominion spread without the money to fund significant numbers of temples, and right now I don't have excess cash. I need it to build critical infrastructure, I need it to get mages up, I need it to get keep meteorite guard production going, because every fortress I have is producing meteorite guard at the best clip I can manage. A few Lobo guard in niche circumstances, but there you go again. We go one more. Producing as many meteorite guardsmen as I can, because like Ormish infantry, they're worth money, but you're limited by resources. So, at the end of turn 31, where are we? Well, we're now diplomatically aligned with Ermor. Will they turn on us at some point? Probably. Do they like us? Probably not. But it means that they'll go be someone else's problem, and they'll distract the major powers. They will hopefully operate on the war with Nabar in a way that will give Nabar a little more survivability, thus tiring out Shinuyama and Ind and Caelum a little more, thus forcing Satis to fight a one-on-one war with Ind, where Ind isn't distracted by a war with Nabar, because presumably Ind will peace out of this once it starts to go wrong. So, ironically, making the war against Nabar harder is probably likely to make Ind stronger and more able to resist Satisian aggression. This agreement will also push Ermor to invade Caelum, which, unlike Ermor invading Satis, is unlikely to bring a second power in to support, and allow Ermor to advance in such a way that makes them even more threatening to Satis, thus guaranteeing Ermor eventually fights Satis, and if Ermor eventually fights Satis, then the primary threats continue to contain each other. That's great in theory. It's great in theory, it's a great master plan, but no plan survives first contact with the enemy. These people are all thinking rational actors. All I can do is provide inducements and support that make the most rational decision the one that favours me most. In this case, giving Ermor assistance and supporting an invasion of Caelum makes Ermor want to invade Caelum. It becomes the right choice, right? It becomes objectively for them better than invading either Satis or me, because the extra incentives available on the Caelum option. And through systems like that, I hope to make the dominoes fall in such a way that we can score a little more land, that we can keep the land powers mostly screened off from us and distracted. We can keep the Ermorian armies deployed in such a way that they do not border us on the west, which is always going to be our most vulnerable area. And in the meantime, I'm probably going to kill the Xibalba at some point, and begin redeploying my troops for an offensive against Caelum. It's turn 31. Lots happened. See you next time.